possibly.
Computer and not my, oh, can you hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you, Amy.
I'm trying to get in, but I'm trying to get out on my computer, not my phone.
Well, I can hear you, so I don't.
Yeah, this is my phone.
Oh, gotcha.
So give me a sec. I'll
Yep,
work it out.
Sure. Okay. Where did you go, Maeve? I lost her on my screen. Nope, I think she's totally off. Okay. Oh, no, there she is. Are you ready to tell us a joke? Maybe? Let's see. Okay. Maeve's not coming off mute, so I'm gonna let somebody else. One other person. Anybody have a joke that they want to tell? Gallegos family.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yahoo.
I didn't know you were that excited to see me.
I like it. I like that one. Good job. Thank you. That one made me smile. I like it. All right, let me keep adding everybody in. We have a few more people waiting in class. Ethan is showing us a mask that he has. I can see he is no longer Ethan. He is, I'm not sure what it is. Oh, there he is. I see his face again. Fabulous. All right, we're going to wait 1 more minute. 1 more minute. And then Cristiano, I just saw your chat. Yes, your joke was good too. You guys have been bringing on the jokes today. I appreciate it. I love it. I love when we start our class with jokes. It makes a lot of fun. All right. Trying to keep up with adding people to our class.
I have a joke.
Okay, one joke, Michaela. Go ahead.
Why did the pizza go with the chicken?
Why did the pizza what? Well, you have to say it one more time, Michaela. Why did the pizza what? Oh, I can't hear you, Michaela.
Why didn't the pizza go with the chicken?
Why didn't the pizza go with the chicken? I have no clue. You tell me.
Yeah.
Why?
Because it was too pepperoni that day.
It was too pepperoni that
Pepperoni.
day. Yeah, I can always count on you for awesome jokes, Michaela. Okay, guys. All right, everybody mute themselves. We're going to get started in class. It is 11:02. We have a full class of information today. So let me get our screen up. Oh, nope, hold on. I know I didn't do something. Let me try it one more time. You know me, always making sure you guys will be able to hear our videos, which will be important today. Okay. So I'm going to keep admitting people into our class. Hopefully everybody joins soon. Okay, it is class 2 of 5. And today we're going to talk about our gardening tips and tricks. But before we get started, obviously you have to remember, we have to keep ourselves muted. There's so many of us on the call right now. We're up to 30 people on our call. And so we want to make sure that we keep muted, which means you can hear me. I cannot hear you. So if you need to tell me something, you can put it in the group chat if you can find that, okay? And if not, you can try to raise your hand. I do take a couple minutes every once in a while to try to go through everybody's pictures to make sure if you need me that I'm there for you and I can answer your questions, okay? But do make sure you keep yourself on mute, and that way everybody can hear everything that's happening, okay? Let me go through, make sure nobody has any questions. You can see what we're talking about today, a little bit different. Last week, we talked about composting and we talked about food waste. You guys had some great input on how we can stop food waste and all the different ways that we do waste our food, which was unfortunate to hear, right? So we're trying to make a better effort to be conscious and to be aware of the things that we're doing with our food so that we're not wasting it, okay? So today we're actually going to talk about whether or not a plant is a vine or a bush, which could really determine whether or not you have space to plant that in your backyard or on your porch or in a pot. Okay, we're going to talk about potted plants, what plants we can put in a pot that don't have to go in the ground. Okay, we're going to talk about companion planting, which is an interesting topic I love to learn about. And then we're going to talk about Ollas, so which is a kind of cool way that we here in the desert can water our plants. But before we do that, I want to show you guys this awesome picture that I got today. This is Miss Michaela, and she is working on her compost pile in her backyard. Okay, so I'm going to congratulate Michaela for working on that. I'm going to stop sharing really quick so we can see each
I
other.
was late for this class today.
That's okay, Stone. It's not a problem. It's okay if you're late. I want to see by a raise of hand, anybody else that either started paying attention to their food waste or started a compost pile in your backyard. Okay, I want you to raise your hands. If we
I
got,
didn't get
oh, I love this. I see so many hands raised. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose 2 people. Now, those of you that have been in my class before, you very well know our classes are so big, I can't ask everybody to talk.
You noticed the eye that you see gray around?
I do see that, Stone. Yes.
It's not a black eye.
Yes. Okay, that's good. I'm glad. I am going to ask 2 people to talk about the project that they worked on this week. But if I don't choose you, I want to know what you guys are doing. Okay, so you have to email it to me. You can take pictures, you can write it out and take a picture of your writing. You can type it to me. You can do whatever you want to do, but I want to know. Okay, so if you can't share today in class because not everybody can share, please send it to me because I love seeing the projects that you guys work on. Okay, I promise I love seeing them, and then I can share them on our website and I can share them on our
I
Facebook
never really
page,
do that.
and then you guys can get famous. Okay, I know everybody wants to be famous, so you can be garden famous. Okay, so send it to me if you don't get to talk. Okay, so let's see. I would like to ask for Brooklyn and Adeline to tell me what part of the project did you work on this past week?
We worked on not wasting the food.
Perfect. And so how did you work on that? What did you pay attention to?
We paid attention to like not throwing away food that we don't want and like putting it in the fridge for eating it later.
Or letting our dogs have it.
Okay, fabulous. Whatever you do with it is perfect. So you're eating leftovers, which is a fabulous way to save some of our food. And then you're letting your dogs have some of it, which is good as long as you keep it healthy for your dogs too. Those are great ways to pay attention to food waste. Okay, let me check our group chat. I just saw a question. Oh, Addie and Emerson have a question. How long does it take for a banana to grow? You know what, guys? Even though I lived in Hawaii, I actually don't know the answer to that question. So I am going to task Gio, Mustache Pen Man over there, to do a little Google search for us right now. Can you, Gio? And can you find out how long it takes for bananas to grow? And then when you're ready, you let me know and you can share it with the class, okay? Thank you, Gio. I appreciate it. All right, now I have one more person that I'd like to share from something that you worked on from last week. So raise your hand if you'd like to share what project you worked on this past week. Excuse me. Oh my gosh. Jamie Bowman. Go ahead, love. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Jamie, and let me know what you worked on this past week.
I started having a compost and I started figuring out what does go on the compost, and my leftovers in my fridge, I just ate it, or I also gave it to my dog.
Awesome. So Jamie, let me ask you a follow-up question. What did you use? Like what type of a container did you use to do your compost pile in?
I actually had one already, and it's one of the compost bins that you buy at Lowe's or at your local grocery store. And I just always put my compost in there, and I put it in my garden, and I'm growing it now.
You are so amazing, Jamie. I am so proud of you. I'm so proud of all of you. Okay. Thank you, Jamie, for sharing. Now remember, those are the two people that we're going to share. I see lots of other hands raised, but I want to know. So you guys are going to have to email it to me right now. I'm going to put it in our group chat, my email address, even though you guys get emails from me all the time. Just make sure that you have my email and I want you to send it to me. Okay. I want to see all the details of everything that you guys are working on. Okay. Let's see. Let me go back. All right, Gio, go ahead and unmute yourself and tell us how long a banana takes to grow. Oh, I can't hear you, Gio. Come closer to your computer, maybe? 9 to 12 months. He was very quiet, but I heard him. Thank you, Gio. 9 to 12 months. Okay. And then Brooklyn and Adeline asked, what do bananas need to ripen? Which we talked a little bit about last week too. We talked about the gases, right? We talked about specific gases that the bananas need to be able to ripen, to turn green to yellow, which we usually like to eat them when they're yellow, not when they're green, right? So you guys, I am so proud of you for working on paying attention to your food waste and working on your compost piles. And I want to see your details. But we're going to go on to today's topic. Okay, so again, here's Michaela. Good job, Michaela, working on your compost pile too. I'm so proud of you guys.
When will the video start?
Oh, what was the question?
When will the video start?
Oh, not for a while. You got to keep yourself muted, okay, Stone? So everybody can hear. Okay, so we are going to start off with a game, okay? So here's our game, vine or bush. Now I'm gonna tell you a plant and I want you in the group chat, I want you to type a V for vine or a B for bush. Now, as we're talking about these, why? You're like, why, Miss Sarah? Why are you telling us, why do we care about whether or not a plant grows on a vine or whether or not it grows on a bush? So what we're talking about today is gardening, and some of us are concerned about our space. You know, not everybody has a really big yard to grow in. Not everybody has a yard at all. Some of us live in apartments, and some of us live where we don't have space to put plants in the ground. So that might determine what type of plants we try to plant. So if a plant grows on a vine, it probably needs a good amount of space, either to grow up or to grow out, right? And if it grows on a bush, then oftentimes it kind of stays self-contained and it's a little bit easier to grow in a smaller space. So when you're talking about vines and bushes and when we're learning about these plants, I want you to think about that. I want you to think about the ones that might need more space and some that might not need as much space. Okay, so that's the point of this. So remember, a V for vine or a B for bush. Okay, let me go check our group chat and make sure that we are good to go. Yep, we are good. Here we go. We ready? Okay, so if it's on a bush, it's going to go on the blue side. If it's on a vine, it's going to go on the orange side. So that's how you're going to know if you got it right. Okay, so again, V for vine, B for bush. Okay, so here we go. First one is a pumpkin. A pumpkin. Does it grow on a bush or does it grow on a vine? Oh, yes. I'm glad I started with an easy one, because it looks like you guys, most of you know. Ready? Here we go. Were you correct? If you were correct, give me a quick little clap. You don't have to unmute yourself. Let me see it. Oh yeah, right on. Give yourself a pat on the back. Very proud of you. We got a lot of these to get through. Ready? Here's our next one. Herbs. So like mince, basil, dill. How do those grow? Do they grow on a vine or do they grow on a bush? Vine or bush, vine or bush. Ooh, you guys are too good. Here we go. Definitely on a bush. Very easy to plant those type of plants in a pot, and they don't need a ton of space. Okay, here's our next one. We're going to go quick through the next ones. Okay, are you guys ready? Is everybody ready? Give me a thumbs up because we're going to go kind of quick. We're paying attention. Okay, here we go. Next one is lettuce. Bush or vine? Bush or vine? Here it goes. Bush. Okay, see it growing right there in the ground, doesn't need a lot of space. Okay, next one, zucchini. I love zucchini. I love zucchini fries. I love to eat them. They're so good. Vine or bush, vine or bush. Here we go, here we go, here we go, here we go. Drum roll, did you get it right? Definitely a vine. Okay, now we're going to talk about that one a little bit later, but it is a vine. Okay, next one, watermelon. Who doesn't love watermelon? I mean, I love watermelon. You probably love watermelon too. Yeah? Okay, here we go. Vine or bush, vine or bush. Dun, 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 dun. Definitely a vine. Okay, definitely needs a little bit more space. Next one is bell peppers. I love bell peppers. They're so good to make stuffed bell peppers in the evening for dinner. Vine or bush, vine or bush, vine or bush. Ooh, I see both. I see both, vine and bush, vine and bush. Ooh, this is a good one. Obviously, not everybody knows. Definitely a bush. Okay, easy to grow in a pot. They take a little bit less space than some of our vined plants. Okay, next one is potatoes. Potatoes. Now I'm going to have a bonus question for this one. Vine or bush? Vine or bush? Vine or bush? Vine or bush? Both. I'm seeing vine, bush, vine, bush, vine, bush, vine, bush. Man, okay, good. I'm glad we're talking about this. A potato grows on a bush, but stop screen share really quick. I want to see all of your faces. Raise your hand if you can tell me where a potato grows. Ethan, unmute yourself, baby, and tell me where a potato grows. Underground. High five, air high five right here. Woo! Yeah, good job, guys. You guys are amazing. Potatoes actually grow under the ground. So yes, we see a bush on the top, right? It's not a vine on the top, but it does grow under the ground. And we're going to talk about that here in just a little bit too. Okay, next one. Next one is a cantaloupe. Cantaloupe. Do we think vine or bush? Vine or bush? Vine or bush? I'm seeing a little bit of both. I'm seeing a little bit of both. Cantaloupe is definitely on a vine. It's kind of like a watermelon. You see how they kind of look similar? They kind of also look like a pumpkin, right? They have those same shapes. They also grow on a vine, okay? Our next one is cucumber. I love cucumbers. I love to grow cucumbers, and then I like to turn them into pickles. So we make our own pickles, and then I jar our own pickles, and they're so, so yummy. So, so yummy. I'm seeing a little bit of both. Most cucumbers grow on a vine. Okay, good job, guys. Jalapenos. Jalapenos make everything really spicy. Bush or vine? Bush or vine? Oh, looks like you guys know that one pretty well. Bush. Good job. Peas. How about peas? Or beans, because they kind of fit under the same. Peas, beans, soybeans. My family loves soybeans. Super yummy snack to go into the garden and pop out some soybeans. Let's see what you guys think. Vine, bush, vine, 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 vine. Okay, a little bit of both. They're definitely a vine. They need a lot of space, and we're going to talk about them too. Next is onions. Similar to our potatoes. I'm going to give you a clue. Similar to our potatoes. How do they grow? We're going to call it a bush. All right, we're going to call it a bush. Although it's very hard to say an onion's actually a bush, it does grow under the ground just like a potato. And we just see a little bit of it as it comes out of the ground, okay?
Excuse me.
Yes, Michaela.
Isn't the stuff on top so it comes with the little, so doesn't it come with the little thing on top, and there's a bush on top of the potato, and the potato's the wheel, giving it water, and then we eat the wheel. So then that's why we have both the potato and the onion, because the potato and the onion are both the roots of the plant,
You
right?
are very correct. That's why they grew under the ground. They're part of the root system. Fabulous, Michaela. Good job. All right, next one is yellow squash. Yellow squash. What do we think? Yellow squash. Where do we think that they grow? I saw someone in the group chat say carrots do too. You are very correct. Carrots do grow underground. They're not on our list today, but they do grow underground just like a potato and an onion. High five to whoever said that. Yellow squash is a vine. All right, it does need quite a bit of space. Next one is corn. I wonder, corn is not so much grown here in New Mexico, but if you've ever been to the Midwest or the East Coast, you'll see a lot of corn growing. Oh, and this is very interesting. It is not it's a kind of a tricky one actually, because corn is not actually a bush, but it definitely isn't a vine. So I did put it on the bush side, okay? It grows straight up on a stalk. So you'll see it, and then off of the stalk will grow some of the corn cobs, okay? So it's definitely not a vine. It grows straight up, okay? It does need space for height, but it doesn't need space to grow out as a vine. Now here's the last,
Like a
the
corn
last one.
maze.
Like a corn maze. Yes, if you've ever gone through a corn maze, you know exactly what corn looks like. Exactly. I grow corn at my house too. I don't think I showed any pictures last week, but we grew a big patch of corn last year too, and it was so super yummy. All right, last one. Actually, there's two more. Next one is tomato. I'd like for you to tell me bush or vine. And this is a tricky one. Let's see what everybody says. It looks like we're getting about 50% of you are saying bush and 50% of you are saying vine. And give you a little drum roll. Let's hear it. I don't need to actually hear it, but drum roll for me. Go ahead. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Here we go. Bam. It actually fills both of our last spots because there are tomatoes that are on a bush and there are tomatoes that are on a vine. And it's really important that you pay attention to which ones you are planting because some of them are going to need a lot more space than others. Okay.
Excuse me.
Yes, Michaela.
Is it also true they can go on stalks? Because my grandma, has been planting some, and they've grown in like stalks, like how corn would grow.
Well, that would be more of, well, it kind of depends, love, which kind she's actually planting, because sometimes our vine, and we're actually going to talk about that. Okay, Michaela? I'm going to let everybody else see if we have any questions. Does anybody have any questions about the vine or bush before we move on? No. Did you clear up some of the questions that you might have, whether or not you thought things grew on a vine or on a bush, or did you know them all? You guys were already so super smart, you knew all of them. Okay, I see Gio's raising his hand. Gio, did you have a question, bud? Gio, I can't hear you. No, I still can't hear you, bud. You're like so super quiet. Go ahead.
Didn't get all of them right. I thought pumpkin was bush.
Oh, you thought pumpkin was bush. Gio, something must be wrong, but I can't hear anything you're saying. So if you want to type it into the chat, I'll definitely I can answer the question or I can share whatever it is that you want to share. Okay, Gio? Okay, do that for me and I'll share. Okay, does anything else you want to share about what we just learned before I move on? Kamari? Is that your name, love? Okay, good. Because right now you say you have my name, right? So I had to try to remember what your name is. So Kamari, go ahead and unmute yourself, love, and tell me what you want to share.
I thought you were doing two more.
Well, I tricked you because it was tomatoes that filled both of the spots. So we're not actually doing two more. It's just that tomatoes can grow on a vine or they can grow on a bush. But good catch. Did I trick you? Yes. All right. Fabulous. That was my goal. Good job. All right. Let me double check our chat and see if Gio sent anything yet. No, Gio, not yet, bud. I'm looking, Gio. Okay. So when you're ready, you type it up and I'll share it, even if I move on. Okay. Okay. So we are going to move on. Here we go. So we're going to talk about the difference really between the two tomatoes. Okay. So when you're looking at seed packets at the store and you're helping your parents choose what kind of tomatoes you want to plant in your garden, and tomatoes grow very well here in New Mexico. Okay. Very, very well. It's a great plant to try to start with. Okay. But there's two types and it will say it on the seed packet for you. There's determinate and there's indeterminate. Okay, so determinate vines or determinate tomatoes are more of like your bush tomatoes. You can see in the picture, it's on the right hand side. It'll stay a little bit smaller. Okay, they're the good kind to put in a pot and have on your back porch or on your front porch or wherever it can get some sunshine. Okay, they don't produce as much crops, as much tomatoes as your indeterminate tomatoes, but they will produce quite a bit. Okay, so it stays about 5 feet tall, and I'm about 5 feet tall, so it still gets really big. You do have to use a big pot to be able to plant them, but they won't grow as tall as some of our indeterminate tomatoes. Okay, and those are two really hard words to try to remember, but you can always revisit our class if you're getting ready to go search for your tomato plants, and make sure, like I said, make sure you check that seed packet. It's going to tell you what kind it is, okay? And some of your more common tomatoes that you'll see at the store more often, like Better Boy and Cherokee Purple, those are two really common tomatoes that we see on a regular basis at the grocery store. I'm trying to check the chat, Gio, and it's not letting me see it. Hold on. I want to make sure I'm not missing Gio's question. Hold on, guys. Let's see. Why can I not see our chat? I'll find it in just a second, Gio, okay, if you typed it to me. They're the indeterminate ones. So you can see in this picture right here I found it. Here we go. We love tomatoes. I love tomatoes too. Let me tell you, I'll tell you here in just a second. They are really tasty. That's what I'm seeing in our group chat. So right here is our indeterminate. Now, Michaela, going back to your question, love, you said, can a tomato grow on a stalk? And our indeterminate tomatoes, they actually go really tall. You see down here, they grow 10 to 11 feet tall. That's double my height. Okay, now we have to support the indeterminate tomatoes. We have to support them with some kind of a stick or a tomato cage or something that will allow them to grow really, really tall. And when we support them, it actually kind of looks like they're growing on a stalk, which is what kind of Michaela was kind of asking. So not all vines have to grow out on the ground. Like sometimes we see at a pumpkin patch, pumpkins grow on vines and they grow out, right? It's okay for vines to grow up too. But the problem is, or the goal for us is we actually have to support them. They can't grow up without a support system. So just like you need a support system from your family, your mom, your dad, your grandmas, your uncles, your aunties, all of them to help you grow up, we have to provide a support system for our tomatoes to grow up. They need these sticks and support systems to be able to grow really, really tall. And if they don't, they're just going to fall over and they're going to hang like this, and they're not going to do a very good job at growing up and producing the crops for us, okay? What you can do when you're growing an indeterminate tomato, the kind that need to be supported, right? It's you prune them, which means you cut off little pieces, and then you can't just do it willy-nilly. There's a whole technique to it. And if you want to know how, I can help you guys. I can help guide you on how to prune your tomatoes. Okay. But you have to prune them a little bit. And the more you prune them, which it seems silly, you're cutting off parts of their plant, right? The more tomatoes it grows, which is really crazy to think about. But there's a whole theory behind taking parts of the plant away so the plant can actually focus on growing more tomatoes, okay? So there is a specific way to do that. And like I said, I can help you guys if you want help for that. But there are the two types of tomatoes, and we have to really pay attention to, depending on where you want to grow them, as to what type of tomato you want to grow, okay? Before I move on, I'm going to stop sharing. We talked about tomatoes, the two different types. I want to know, do you have any questions? It looks like Mason is raising his hand. Mason, do you have a question?
It's kind of just something to, it's just peas need a support too.
Yes, peas also need a support system. We're actually going to talk about that here in just a second too, but you got ahead of me. You guys are also super smart all the time. You're always getting ahead of me in class. It looks like Layla, James, and Abby have a question. Go ahead, love.
Not really a question.
Sure.
But last summer, we actually grown a determinate tomato.
You did grow determinate tomatoes. Air high five, my dear. Were they super yummy?
I don't usually like tomatoes, but some people in my family do.
Yeah.
But it was fun growing them. But oh, look, there's another tomato.
It's so fun to watch them grow, huh? I totally understand that. I have to tell you guys, I have to admit something to you. Ready? Are you ready? I'm going to tell you a deep, dark secret that I have. I am addicted to tomatoes. It's a really horrible addiction to have. I grow so many tomatoes. I don't even know what to do with them sometimes because I have so many tomatoes. Last year, I grew 25 tomato plants. One family does not need 25 tomato plants. It is absolutely ridiculous, you guys. And then I just go to the store and then I see more plants and I'm like, but I need these tomatoes. Like I need the tomato plants. It's really horrible. I don't understand what happened to me. But I will tell you that I use my tomatoes really well. We made tomato sauce. Like I made spaghetti sauce and we canned it. And so I still have spaghetti sauce in my cabinet. So I don't have to buy spaghetti sauce. We use our tomatoes and we make salsa. I use tomatoes to make stewed tomatoes and I just chop them up and I can use them in all kinds of recipes while I'm cooking, right? So there's lots of different ways to use your tomatoes, but I literally have a tomato addiction. Last year, I grew white tomatoes. What? Did you know there was such a thing? They're like totally, completely white. They're absolutely amazing. And I loved watching them grow. It looks like I have one more question from Jackson, Henry, and Calvin, and then we're going to move on. And if you have more questions, type them in the group chat for me, okay? Jackson, Henry, and Calvin, go ahead, guys. What question or comment do you want to share?
I was just gonna say we grew tomatoes too.
Right on. Do you know if it was an indeterminate or determinate tomato?
It was a determinate.
Okay, fabulous. Were they good? Do you guys eat them?
Yeah, Calvin did.
Air high five right there, guys. Very proud of you. Good job. Keep it growing. All right, so mute yourselves again. I'm gonna go back to class. If you have more questions, it's not that I don't want to hear from you. I can't ask everybody. So type them in the group chat and I'll do my best to answer any of them or share your comments, okay? Let me make sure. I'm just checking the group chat to make sure I'm not missing anything from anyone. Why do potatoes and onions grow underground? We're gonna have to do a whole nother lesson on that. That's actually, I think Michaela shared that's part of their root system, and that's just what the part of the plant that we end up eating. So if you need more information than that, I would be more than happy to share with you, but I can't stop in the middle of our class right now to talk about that, but I can try to share more later, okay? Harper, I also like watching tomatoes grow. It's so exciting to me to see more tomatoes. And tomatoes are an easy plant to grow and be able to just like go out into your garden and like pick them and eat them, right? You don't have to do anything. You don't have to cook them. You don't have to, peel them. You don't have to do anything. You just pick them right off the vine or the bush and you eat them like a little snack. It's the best. Okay, going back. Here we go. So now that we learned a little bit about what plants can grow in a vine and what plants grow on a pot, I'm just going to do a little bit of talking about what plants go really well in a pot here in New Mexico. Okay, so for those of you that don't have a big outdoor space or don't have a yard to plant them in, that doesn't mean you can't have a garden. That doesn't mean you can't have plants that you can grow and eat things off of. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. So you'll see here, somebody else, I forget who said it, but they said peas also need a support system. Yes, but just because a plant needs a support system doesn't mean it can't be grown in a pot. So you'll see over here on the left-hand side, I think you guys can see my mouse. Let me double check. You'll see over here, this is actually cucumbers growing on a vine in a pot. You still have to give them a support system, right? And we still have to give them a place to grow up so that they don't grow out all over your patio or your porch. But you can absolutely grow peas and cucumbers in a pot. There's no reason why. You just have to give them a support system to grow up, okay? Now, these little cucumbers are the best cucumbers for making pickles. So if you really like pickles, growing cucumbers are a fun way to be able to eat your own pickles, okay? Let me check our group chat. We have some, what do white tomatoes look like? That was a question. Maybe if I have time at the end, maybe I can show you guys. So right here in the middle. Now this is one of the ones I said is a little bit tricky when we were talking about vines and bushes, because does anyone know what this is? Raise your hand if you know what it is. Actually, go ahead and unmute yourself. Anybody that knows what it is, unmute yourself and tell me, and then mute yourself. It's not pickles. It's not cucumbers.
Zucchini.
Zucchini, exactly. All right, everybody mute yourself.
Zucchini.
Yep, everybody mute yourself. Very good. It is zucchini, okay? Now, we said zucchini grows on a vine, right? Miss Sarah, how are you telling me zucchini grows on a vine and there's no support system? Well, zucchini is a little bit tricky, okay? Zucchini is considered a vine, but it's considered a condensed vine. So what it does, it doesn't really grow out like a pumpkin plant does, okay? It kind of grows out a little bit, but it kind of stays condensed. And you can actually learn how to prune your zucchini plants so that they stay more like a bush. So if you really want to plant zucchinis and you love to eat zucchinis like I do, you can put them in a pot. You do not have to plant them in the ground. You just have to look up some strategies on pruning your zucchini plants so they stay more like a bush and less like a vine. Okay. The last picture over here is a tomato plant. This is a little tiny dwarf tomato plant. It's really tiny. You can grow very big tomato plants inside a pot. You just need a very big pot. You need a pot that's at least 18 inches deep to grow some of our bigger determinant tomatoes, okay? This is a little tiny cherry tomato plant and it doesn't need as much space, but you can grow big tomato plants inside a pot as well. But let's think about that really quick, you guys. We said that the bush type tomato plants can grow as tall as me. And I know you can't see how tall I am right now because I'm sitting down, but I'm 5'4". Okay, I'm 5 feet 4 inches. And we said some of the bush tomato plants can get to be 5 feet tall, right? That's pretty tall for a tomato plant. Do you think that we would still have to provide them with some type of support system? Even though they're not a vine, do you think that we should maybe give them something to lean on? Yeah, right. I see some of you saying yes, absolutely. So if you're going to do a big tomato plant in a pot, you should still get a tomato cage. And if you don't know what that is, we can try to look at it at the end, okay? You can still get a tomato cage to provide support for your tomato inside your pot, okay? Totally fine, doesn't have to be in the ground. No problem at all, okay? With all of these, using your compost is a fabulous way to provide nutrients to some of these potted plants, okay? Here's a couple other really good ones. Lettuce grows really well in a pot. You do not have to grow it in the ground, but if you're going to grow lettuce this season, right, it's best to start growing it now. Lettuce does not like the heat. Is it warm in New Mexico? Yes, it is warm in New Mexico. It is very hard to grow lettuce all summer long in New Mexico. It gets too hot and it doesn't grow very well. So now is the time to plant your lettuce. Okay, you're like right on the cusp of being able to harvest some lettuce before it gets too hot. Okay, so if you like lettuce or spinach or kale or any of those, now is the time, and it can totally be grown in a pot. No big deal. Okay, guys, it likes the shade, it likes the cooler temperatures. So the nice thing about growing lettuce in a pot, even if it is warmer outside, you can actually move your pot into the shade so your lettuce isn't in the heat where it's really, really hot and it's not doing well. Okay, let me look and see. Somebody said their mom is just as tall as I am. That's funny. Oh, Harper asked a good question. How do you prevent squash bugs? Oh, does anyone know what a squash bug is? I'm going to go back a picture. I'm going to try to go back a picture. Here we go. So zucchini is a squash. Pumpkin is a squash. Cucumbers fall under the squash. Cantaloupe fall under the squash. All of those are squashes. We have a very bad problem here in New Mexico with squash beetles. So let me tell you my trick. Okay. If I tell you the trick, you have to keep it a secret. You can't tell everybody. Actually, you should tell everybody because I want everybody to have big, successful gardens. Okay. Here's the secret about squash beetles. There is no perfect way to get rid of your squash beetles, but there are some ways to prevent them. The first way to prevent them is to try to plant some squash right now. Okay, you still run the risk of having some really cold temperatures, possibly at the end of April or very beginning of May, but planting them now will allow them to grow, and you will be able to harvest some of your squash before the squash beetles come. Okay, then this is what I do. So I plant now, and then I have a whole season of crop, and then the squash beetles come. It just happens. That's just the way that it goes. And then I take all of my squash plants out, and then I plant my second round of squash after the 4th of July. No time before that. So after the 4th of July, you can plant your squash, and it's less likely that the squash beetles will come. Okay. You can also skip your first whole season. You don't have to plant squash now. You could wait until 4th of July and plant your squash. Now, the only other way to really curb your squash beetles is to go out every single day and pluck all of the squash beetles off and squish them, probably not between your fingers because they stink. They don't smell very good at all. Squish them and flip over all of your squash leaves and look for eggs. And what I do is I take some tape and I wrap it around my hand. And when I find eggs on the bottom of the squash leaves, I stick the tape to it and I pick off the eggs to prevent more squash beetles from coming. I do this twice a day. Actually, I do it in the morning, and my kids go out and they do it in the evening, because that's really the only way to curb squash beetles. Now, I say it's the only way, but at the same time, you can use chemicals. I don't use chemicals. I don't use chemicals in my garden. So there are some pesticides that will keep your squash beetles away. But again, if you're trying to keep a natural garden without any chemicals, then there's really no way other than adjusting your planting seasons and then looking for those squash beetles all the time. It's like a game for my kids. We feed them to our chickens. So we actually don't squash ours. We put them in a bucket with a lid, and we find them, and then we take them to the chickens, and the chickens eat them and they love them. So again, we're trying to repurpose all of the things that come out of our garden, even the bugs. Okay. So I hope that answered whoever's question. I don't know if that was a kid question or a parent question, but hopefully that helped with whatever you guys are worried about. And if you want to talk more about squash beetles, you can email me and I'd be more than happy to tell you. So on the second side over here, you can see they grew some potatoes. Potatoes grow super well in a pot, and the awesome part is you don't have to dig them up when they're done. You just dump out your pot and you have all of your potatoes. Super easy way to be able to grow potatoes. It's actually way easier to grow them in a pot than it is to grow them in the ground. Okay. So those are our potted ones. Okay. So I'm going to unshare really quick, see if you have any questions about potted plants. I may not have all the answers, but I can always help you find the answers if I don't have them. I'm going to take 2 questions about potted plants. Bethany, go ahead, love.
It isn't exactly a question, but I wrote it in the chat. Maybe to keep your lettuce warm, you can just put an umbrella over it.
You could do that. You could put some shade over your lettuce, but eventually in the middle of the summer, like late June, very early July, it's so hot. And what happens is while your lettuce grows, it automatically goes to seed. And if you don't know what that is, if you Google some pictures like lettuce going to seed, something like that, you'll be able to see. And what it does is it grows really, really tall and lanky. And then at the top gives you seeds, which you can collect those seeds and you can use them next year, but it stops making the leafy part of the lettuce, which is what we like to eat. And that's just the way that the crop is. There's just no way to be able to really grow lettuce year round here in New Mexico unless you're doing it in a temperature controlled environment, like in a greenhouse that has the ability to control the temperature. Otherwise, it just gets so hot here in New Mexico for us to grow lettuce all year long. Okay. Let's see. I'm trying to give somebody who didn't already have a turn. Stone, did you want to say something? What were you going to say?
Our dirt looks kind of moldy. Is that bad?
Your dirt looks kind of moldy, like in your compost or your dirt in your backyard.
I didn't do the comp in the garden bed.
Your dirt in the garden bed looks a little moldy. How about this? How about you guys send me a picture? Mom, help him take a picture and get it sent over to me, and I'll tell you what I think maybe is going on.
Okay.
That sound good?
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Of course, no problem. Okay, Brooklyn, go ahead, love.
Can I add on to how to get rid of some squash bugs?
Sure, go for it.
So we made this little solution with essential oils in it, and that killed them all.
Interesting. I would love your technique. I've used essential oils as well. I've tried diatomaceous earth, and we've tried all kinds of other things. I've never found something that works for the squash beetles, and I talk to a lot of people about squash beetles. But if you want to send me your secret recipe, I would love to try it, my dear. Okay? Cool. Sounds good to me. All right. If you have more questions, put them in the group chat. Okay, guys? Because I got to move on. We're already at 11:45 and I have so much more to share with you guys. Okay, next we're talking about I just hit my knee, sorry. We're talking about companion planting. All right, now if you don't know what companion planting is, you can see a little blurb down there at the bottom. Let's read it. Arranging crops so they can complement each other in some way is known as companion planting. Plants that have different requirements for nutrients, sunlight, and space, for instance, often make good garden buddies. Because they are unlikely to compete for resources, you can plant them close to each other and save space. Okay, in a nutshell, that's what companion planting is. So we're going to talk about it here. So there are many reasons that we want a companion plant. There are some plants that need a lot of sun, and then there are some plants that need a little bit of sun. And so while we're doing that, we can actually buddy them up together to give one plant that needs a lot of sun, and that will grow and make shade for a plant that doesn't need a lot of sun, right? And so we can grow them together so that they can help each other. And that's the same thing with water. It's the same thing about companion planting with plants that will attract really good bugs. And then some plants will deter the bugs that you don't want, like squash beetles. And so I've tried other things, like a few different types of flowers that are supposed to repel or send away or keep away those squash beetles as well. And I'm trying a new one this year, but I will see. There are lots of different strategies out there. And sometimes gardening means you try something this year and it doesn't work so well, so you try something new the next year. Okay, so there are many reasons that we want a companion plant, and so we're going to dive into that a little bit. So here is a nice little chart, and I'm going to send you guys a chart too. So don't feel like you have to write everything down or remember everything that's on here, because I'm going to send it to you. This is an example of different plants and what they are really good at planting with. So like if we look at lettuce down here, right? Everybody sees the lettuce one. Here are all of the friends to lettuce, things that would be really good to plant with your lettuce: beets, carrots, cabbage, cucumber, onion, radish, and squash. It actually has no plants that aren't good for it. So really you can plant your lettuce with almost anything. But let's look at tomatoes. We spent some time talking about tomatoes today, right? Friends, things that you would want to plant with your tomatoes: cucumbers, onions, and peppers. Things you do not want to plant with your tomatoes: cabbage, corn, broccoli, kale, and potatoes. Okay, so there are ways, and people have done research and they've done lots of experiments to find out what is really good to plant together. Okay, and that's all I'm really going to talk a little bit about today, because I am going to send you a whole list of things that are really good to plant together, and that's going to be part of your homework. Okay, so we're going to listen to, let me check our group chat really quick. We noticed those beetles, we have them all over in our yard. So those beetles that were on that picture on the right side are actually called flea beetles. And flea beetles, when it gets too warm, will also attack things like your cauliflower, your broccoli, your lettuce, your kale, your spinach. Flea beetles will love, 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 love those. Okay, so there are some plants that you can actually plant to deter your flea beetles as well. Okay. Let me go through, let's see. Okay, so we're going to listen to this video. It's only like 3 minutes long. And this is a technique called Three Sisters Gardening. Okay, now in New Mexico, it's really famous for Three Sister Gardening because it goes all the way back to our Native American heritage here in New Mexico, where these three types of plants are planted together successfully to grow a really bountiful crop. Okay, so here we go, guys. You guys should be able to hear it. Oh, you might not. Nope. Hold on. Hold on, guys. I messed up when I went and I screen shared again. I did not click the little button to be able to let you guys hear, I don't think. We'll try this again. All right. You can hear? Fabulous.
We're here at Sierra Harvest's Food Love Project. Behind me is a technique of planting called Three Sisters. We're going to show you how to do that today. Companion planting is a useful gardening technique where you plant certain veggies together to take advantage of their natural tendencies and relationships. This is a technique that's been practiced for centuries, and most famously with the Three Sisters planting. The Three Sisters is a combination of three plants working together. Sister beans deposit nitrogen from the air into the soil in a form that the plants can use. Plant pole beans such as Blue Lake, Scarlet Runner, or Italian Snap, not bush beans. Sister corn provides support for bean vines to climb upon. Plant your favorite. You can use sweet corn, dent corn, popcorn, or even a combination. And sister squash shades the ground with its large leaves to provide a good growing environment for all the sisters. Squash can be winter type or summer types or both. There are many variations on a Three Sisters garden layout, but all of them plant the sisters in clusters on low, wide mounds rather than in a single row. The Wampanoag method is best known because it was the planting method that the Iroquois taught the early colonial settlers. Other methods include the Hidatsa method, where each sister is planted in clusters on their own mounds, and the Zuni method, which is best for arid regions. The first thing is to find a location with at least 6 hours of full sun every day. The soil should be full of organic matter and weed-free. We're going to build a mound, which we're going to plant the Three Sisters in. Build each mound so that it is 4 inches tall, 18 inches in diameter at the base, with a flat top that is about 10 inches across. Space mounds so their centers are 4 feet apart. You can start your garden when the nighttime temperatures reach at least 55 degrees Fahrenheit, but not any later than June 1st. We're going to plant the corn on the flat part of the mound with 6-inch spacing. And you don't want to plant the other seeds until the corn is about knee-high. You can also transplant the corn to get a head start, and then plant the seeds for the squash and the beans at the same time as you plant the transplants. If you coat your bean seeds with an inoculant before planting, you'll fix nitrogen in the soil, and that will benefit all of the sisters. Here at Food Love Project, the kids actually planted the Three Sisters, and they used flags to mark where their seeds went. Sometimes a fourth sister is included, either a sunflower or bee balm or amaranth. This sister also supports the beans, lures the birds away from the corn with their seeds, and attracts insect pollinators. This Three Sisters mound is about a month old, and it's a perfect example of having 4 to 5 corn stalks in the middle with the fourth sister as an amaranth. The beans have been planted, they're going to get started, and they're going to start growing up the corn and the amaranth, and now we're going to plant the squash. Planting the beans a few weeks after the corn ensures that the corn stalks will be strong enough to support the fast-growing beans. We're planting the squash now that the beans are about 6 inches tall. Spacing should be about 18 inches apart. For a mound this size, that means about 5 squash plants. You might want to put 2 seeds in each hole just in case you don't get 100% germination. And they go around the perimeter of the mound. Plant your Three Sisters garden, which is companion planting at its best, and grow organic for life.
So, pretty interesting, right? I mean, it talks exactly about what we're talking about. Oh, here we go. In our companion planting. All of those plants really help each other grow. The corn grows super tall so the beans can grow up it, right? The big squash plants shade the ground for everything else. It's really the perfect way to grow multiple different types of plants. The only problem is you cannot do all of that in a pot. It does have to be in the ground. So if you don't have a lot of space, that's not something that you can mess with this year. But there will be times that Nature Niños eventually is going to offer a community garden space where we're going to be able to teach these things in person, where you guys can come and really learn about how to actually do these in the ground if you don't have space to do them at home. Okay, guys? So just be on the lookout that probably this upcoming year, we're going to have our own space to be able to do stuff like this. So I'm pretty excited about that. The last thing we're going to talk about today, and we're pretty close to 12 o'clock already, is this amazing watering system called an Olla. Okay, so an Olla, really what it is, it's a pot that gets put in the ground. You can see right here on the left-hand side, and you fill it with water, and it actually continuously waters your root system so that you're not having to put water on top of the ground and potentially losing your water from evaporation. Okay, and it doesn't have to work all the way down into the ground. It's already in the ground for your plants to be able to get the water into their roots. Okay, so there are some benefits of using an Olla. It saves 50 to 70% of your waters when you're planting with vegetable crops. It creates less water stress for your plants. So sometimes some plants don't like to have water on their leaves. It's actually bad for them to get water on their leaves, especially if the sun is out. Because if you get water on your leaves while the sun is shining down, you can actually burn your leaves. So it's really bad to water your plants in the middle of the day. You want to water them early in the morning, or you want to water them late in the evening if you're not going to use a watering system like a drip system or an Olla. Okay, you do not want to water them while the sun is out. It will burn your plants. So using an Olla will help prevent that as well. Okay, and you don't actually have to water every day if you're using an Olla. You fill up the Olla and then you check it every once in a while to see if it needs water. Okay,
I have a question.
hold on really quick, one more thing. The last thing that's really good about an Olla is it doesn't spread water all over your ground, therefore you'll get less weeds, which is really amazing, because part of the hardest part about keeping a really good garden is keeping all the weeds out of your garden too, and spending a lot of time picking weeds out. And so using an Olla helps prevent that as well. Hold on really quick for the question. Let's see. Okay, what was the question about an Olla?
When you get it, when you get it, I mean, not about the Olla, but what if, like, when you get if you plant the plant without the Olla or a drip system, what you were saying, and you just leave it and it rains for like a long period of time, and then it's really hot the next day, will that also burn the plant?
So usually if it's raining, what's happening in the sky? Is the sun usually out if it's raining?
No, but like my question is, what happens if it's raining and it's going really hot and there's like so much water on the leaf?
And then the next day it's really sunny?
Yeah, but there's still a lot of water on the leaf. What will happen?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question, Michaela. So if it rains, and we're talking, you know, sometimes in New Mexico we get no rain, and then sometimes we get a ton of rain. I know exactly what you're talking about, like lots and lots and lots of rain, right? And it kind of is like a flooding situation. By the next day when the sun comes out, the water won't be on your leaves anymore. It doesn't take very much for the leaves to dry off. I wouldn't be concerned about natural rain. I'm more concerned about you going out and watering your plants in the middle of the day without the natural shade of clouds happening in the sky. Okay.
Okay.
That was a really good question, though.
I was just wondering because I didn't want the plants to burn.
Super good question. I'm getting questions on the Olla. So I was debating if I wanted to show you guys this quick video, but I'm actually going to, even though we just watched a video. Gallegos family, did you have a question? I saw you raise your hand, love.
Yes. What type of cup do you use to put in the ground?
So I'm going to show you the video. The video will explain everything. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. We'll watch it. We're going to go a little over 12 o'clock today, but I'm okay with that because I don't have other things happening. So here we go, guys.
Here at the Patch, we have a pretty sophisticated in-ground watering system that does a great job all year round. You might have a system at your place, but did you know there's another way of giving your plants a drink? It's been around since the 1st century BC.
Ollas are traditionally unglazed terracotta pots, filled with water and buried in the soil. Unglazed terracotta is porous, so when it's in the ground, the water inside leaches through. Any unglazed terracotta pots are going to do here. These are 17 centimetres across.
Which is
so
about
together,
6 inches.
They're going to hold over 3 litres of water. Step 1 is to block up the hole of one of the pots. Now to do this, you can use an old milk carton lid, a floor protector, or for that more natural look, a stick.
You could also use
I'm
a
going
stone
with the floor
or a
protector,
rock or anything.
but whatever you use, you just have to cut it to size and then seal it, using silicone both inside the pot and out. Run a line of silicone sealant around the rim of this pot and then invert the second pot on top of it so that they join. You don't have to be too...
I'm going to pause it real quick. So we are joining the pots, but before we join the pots, he talked about it, but he didn't show you. He's plugging up one of the holes. So both pots, if you were holding like this, both of them have a hole on the bottom of them, right? To allow for drainage when you plant plants in them. You're going to fill one of the holes. You could fill it, like he said, with a milk top. You could fill it with a stone, a stick, anything. And you're going to use the silicone, the same thing that he's putting around the outside of it, to help seal that hole completely up. You are going to need your parents' help with the silicone, okay? You don't want to get that all over the place. It's not something to play with. So that's something that an adult or someone older than you is probably going to have to help you do, okay? And now, after we plugged up one of the holes, not both of them, one of them, we get to this part where he's sealing them both up. I'm going to continue the video now.
too perfect, it's going in the ground anyway. Now you're going to need a good 24 hours for the silicone to cure properly, but in the interest of getting a move on, thank you. Here's one I prepared earlier. Ollas work just as well in raised garden beds or planter boxes. Now all you have to do is put them in the ground with the top exposed and then gently pack around them, removing any air pockets as you go. This way, the roots of the plant will come into better contact with the ground. A little tip for this is to always have a bit of water on hand and wet it as you go. Next, fill it up with rainwater or any potable water. Obviously, using bigger pots will spread the water further, so try a bit of experimentation. Ollas are great for crops with fibrous root systems like melons, squash and tomatoes. And they're also great for getting young trees started. You've just got to watch out that the roots don't end up cracking your Olla. And the last thing you need to do is bung up the hole using a stone or your stick. This will keep soil out and any unwanted visitors. Now they will lose their water over time. Well, that's totally the point. But how do you know when they're empty? Well, you can get all sciencey and make some flags and levels, but I like to use the old-fashioned method. Take your bung out, put your finger in. Wet.
So you guys can see that's a pretty easy thing to do, right? With a little bit of adult help. And now this picture might make a little bit more sense that we see here on the left-hand side is what kind of a pot? Terracotta pot, easy. So all you really need is terracotta pot and some silicone to seal everything up. We want to get the silicone that's usually used in a bathroom because it's waterproof. We want it to be waterproof because we want the whole thing to be sealed up, right? And the terracotta will just leach out that water just slowly until the soil is wet, and then it'll actually stop leaching it. And when it starts to dry a little bit, it'll start leaching it again. It's really the perfect solution to be able to water in the desert. We're not wasting our water every day watering our plants. You're not out there watering every single day, and the water is not evaporating as we are using it in our spaces. Okay.
Excuse me, Miss Sarah.
Yes, go ahead.
Remember those flea beetles and those like squash beetles?
Uh-huh.
What if you use like fake squash or fake
Like a fake plant?
Yeah.
It's not a bad idea. I've never heard of anyone doing that, but you know what? Like I said earlier, there's really no wrong way to garden. So if you want to try it, I would love to see how that works out for you. My initial thought is that the bugs probably will not be attracted to it because it's fake, but you never know, right? You never know. If you want to try, my dear, I would love to see that experiment and how it works out for you.
Maybe
Okay.
we can plant it and we can hide the other squash so they will think that squash is real and they won't get to the other real squash.
Oh, and
Sounds-
maybe we can. I have an idea.
It sounds like you guys are doing a lot of wondering and a lot of questioning, and that's actually the best way to grow your mind and your garden is to wonder and question. Okay, so good job on that. Yes, go. Who else had a Michaela? Go ahead.
I think if you were gonna do that with the squash, maybe you should find like some sort of squash scented something because I'm pretty sure they're attracted to the scent of it.
Well,
Like most bugs,
you
they
guys are
follow-
getting real technical here.
Like most bugs, they most likely follow with the scent of their favorite plant or food.
Mhm. Okay, yeah, that's a good strategy and technique. Layla, James, and Abby, go ahead.
What do squash bugs look like?
Oh, can I show you in just a second? Okay, I'll show you a picture in just a second. Maeve, did you have a question?
You just the hole in the bottom of the pot.
Ooh, you're super choppy, love. I can't hear what you're saying. Try one more time. Or if you want to type it to me. No, you're choppy, love. I can't understand anything. You sound like a robot. So if you want to type me your question, yeah, send it to me in the chat and I'll answer it for you, okay? Let's see. I think that's everybody. I only have 2 more slides really quick. I want to get to them really quick, you guys, and then we can do a couple other deep dives into some information. So when you're using your Oyas, here are some different ways that you can plant with them. This brown, let me make sure we can see right here. This part right here is the Oya, okay? On all of these plants, these are the Oyas. So you can plant, here's your plants, and you can do every other, a plant, an Oya, a plant, an Oya, or you could put an Oya in the middle and put your plants all around it. Okay, but you just have to make sure that you're still spacing your plants. You don't want to overcrowd your plants. So when you're looking at a seed packet, it tells you how far away it needs to be planted from another plant. Make sure you're still paying attention to that while you're using your Oya. And that's by like here, you put your Oya here and you can still see that this plant is still 8 inches away from each other. So we're following the plans of our plants and how far away they need to be planted, but we're planting them near the Oya so that it still gets the root water so that we're not having to water our plants all the time, okay? The last thing that I wanted to just show you is terracotta pots are very inexpensive. You can go to Walmart. I actually went to Lowe's to pick up some new ones for us at our house yesterday, and they were $1.35 for the ones that are 6 inch. Okay, those are a really good size to start with. The 6 inch ones, you could go a little bit bigger, but if you go smaller, you're going to have to fill them up a little bit more, and you're going to have to put them closer to your plants because the water won't spread as much. Okay. So what I want to do really quick too is I want to show you squash beetle and what it looks like. Okay. This is what the most common squash beetle looks like. Okay. It almost looks like a dinosaur beetle. I always say they look super prehistoric and they can live through everything, which is probably why we can never figure out a way to keep them away from our gardens, because they're so smart, because they've been around for so incredibly long. So that was one of the questions. What does a squash beetle look like? I feel like there was one more question that I said if I got to the end, I could look up that information for you. Does anyone remember what that question was?
No.
Anybody?
I do.
Okay, what was the question?
It was about wasn't it about the potato. Then somebody asked about the potato, and you assigned somebody to figure out the potato.
I don't remember anything about the potato, but yeah, this is what our squash beetle looks like. So
Okay.
what I am going to do is I'm going to stop sharing. That's actually the end. So what I want you guys to work on this week, I want you to send me your compost, all the things that you're doing in related to your no food waste and your compost if you're working on it. Okay. Don't remember, these are all optional. I'm not requiring you to do it. I'm just encouraging you to do that. Okay. This week, what I want you to think about is whether or not you are going to actually do it. I want you actually to think about the 2 plants that you want to try to companion plant together. Okay. Remember, it's a little bit harder to companion plant in a pot, but you could potentially companion plant if you keep the pots relatively close together and they're the right type of variety of plants. Okay, so it doesn't have to be in a yard, it doesn't have to be in the ground. You could do it in a pot, but I want you to think about what 2 companion plants you want to work with. Now, how are you going to remember that? You said, Sarah, you said I didn't have to remember all the things that were on that chart, and I didn't take a picture and I didn't write it down. That's okay. Totally fine, guys. I'm going to send you an email with a whole chart of companion planting and some websites to actually look at that would be helpful for your companion planting. Okay. So the other project I want you to think about, whether or not you actually do it is totally up to you and your family, is creating some Ollas. Okay. So you could try with just one. You don't have to make a whole garden worth of Ollas, but if you're doing some tomato plants, then you can make one Olla and put it with one tomato plant. You don't have to do it for your whole entire garden. Ollas can also be used in a pot. Absolutely. You just go a little bit smaller. Okay. So we were talking about using the one that's about 6 inches across in your garden. If you're doing it a pot, try the one that's 3 or even 2 inches. And you can actually put it right in your pot, right next to your plant. There's no reason for that. You can do it with flowers. You can do it with vegetables. You can do it with fruit. You can do it with any trees that you have growing. Using an Olla can be used in a pot. So those are your 2 goals for the week. Okay. Think about trying to use an Olla in at least one of your plants and figure out which 2 plants you want to try to use for companion planting. And you probably won't know that right now until I send you the information so you can really look at what you might want to plant. All right. Thumbs up. Everybody? Yeah, fabulous. Do we have any big questions before we get off of our class today? It is, we're already way past 12 o'clock, so I don't want to take up too much time, but if you have a really burning question, I want you to be able to ask it. And if you want to go, you can go too. That's all right too. So I saw Harper raising her hand. Harper, do you have a question, Liv?
What do tomatoes look like?
You know what tomatoes?
Like a tomato plant or the actual tomato, Harper?
The plant.
The plant, sure. Let's look that up really quick. Hold on. I bet you know what a tomato plant looks like, Harper, but I am going to show you anyways. All right. Harper, do you want me to show you a bush tomato plant or a vine tomato plant?
Vine.
A vine. Okay. All right. This is a specific type. It's called a Better Boy tomato. And this is actually a vine plant of tomatoes. So they can grow really, really dense and really, really thick together. Okay.
I just remembered what the question.
Oh, what was the question?
What do white tomatoes look like?
Oh, well, there you go. Perfect. This is what we did then. Obviously, fabulous. Good job, Harper. So that is a Better Boy tomato. It's an indeterminate tomato. It grows over and over and over again, and it is a vine. All right. Any other questions? Kamari.
Oh yeah. What do white tomatoes look like?
Oh, that was a really good one. Yes. Hold on really quick. Let's look. All right. Let's go back really quick. Look at that. Isn't that crazy? Did you even know there was such a thing as white tomatoes? I was so obsessed with my white tomatoes last year when I was growing them. They were so cool to watch. The one problem I did have though is I never knew when they were done, because like when you're growing red tomatoes, they turn red and then you're like, oh, they're ready to be picked. But the white tomatoes, they grow white, they stay white, and they never turn a different color. So I was like, are they done? Are they not done? And so it took some learning for me, right, to figure out which one were actually done. And I ruined a couple of them until I learned. And again, that's part of being a gardener. You try things, and if they don't work out, you try it a different way, right? All right, let me check our group chats. I want to plant white tomatoes too. And you're welcome, Harper. I like learning with you too. All right, guys. I think we are going to call it a day. If you have any additional questions, shoot me. Okay, Gallegos family. I see. She's like waving her head. Wait. Go ahead. What question do you have, love?
I is here. Let me grab it.
Okay.
Is like this the type of pot, but bigger?
Yeah, exactly. And actually that's the perfect size pot for if you were to take another one and do the whole process, that's the perfect size pot for doing it in a potable plant, something that you're doing in a pot. But if you get a bigger one, yes, it's perfect. It's exact pot you need to put in your garden to make an Olla.
Because we have a bunch of these pots.
Amazing. Then you don't even have to go buy them. You can just use them and make them. You just have to get some sealant for your pots. Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, guys, we're going to call that a day. I hope you guys all have a wonderful rest of your week. And I will see you next week with Miss Cass. Miss Cass from the Taos Institute is going to teach our class next week. So be ready. All right, guys.
Thank you.
See you later. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.